Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sri Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Sri Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Sri Purushottam Chatra Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Gaur Premanand. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're on Canto 8, Chapter 22. Bali Maharaj surrenders his life. And we're text 17. Yaya hi vidvan api muyate yatas tat ko vicaṣṭe gatim ātmano yathā tasmai namas te jagadishvaraya vai Nārāyaṇa kila loka sakshine yaya hi vidvan api muyate yatas tatko vicaṣṭe gatim ātmano yathā tasmai namaste jagadishvaraya vai Nārāyaṇa kila lokashakshine yaya hi vidvan api muyate yatas tatko vicaṣṭe gatim ātmano yathā tasmai namaste jagadishvaraya va Nārāyaṇa kila lokashakshine tatko vicaṣṭe gatim ātmano yathā tasmai namaste jagadishvaraya va Nārāyaṇa yaya vidvan api muyate yatas tato vicaṣṭe gatim ātmano yathā namaste jagadishvaraya va Nārāyaṇa kila lokashakshine tasmai namaste jagadishvaraya va Nārāyaṇa kila lokashakshine Yayai vidvan apimuyate yatas Tadko vicaṣṭe gatim ātmano yathā Tasmai namaste jagadishwaraya vai Nārāyaṇa akila lokashakṣine Yayai vidvan apimuyate yatas Tadko vicaṣṭe gatim ātmano yathā Tasmai namaste jagadishwaraya vai Nārāyaṇa akila lokalakṣine. Ladies, yathā vidvan apimuyate yatas Tadko vicaṣṭe gatim ātmano yathā Tasmai namaste jagadishwaraya vai Yayai vidvan apimuyate yatas Tadko vicaṣṭe gatim ātmano yathā Tasmai namaste jagadishwaraya vai Nārāyaṇa akila lokashine. Yaya, by which material opulence he indeed vidvan api, even a person fortunately advanced in education, muyate, becomes bewildered, yathā, self-controlled, tat, that, kaha, who, vicaṣṭe, can search for, gatim, the progress, ātmano, of the self, yathā, properly, tasmai, unto him, namaha, I offer my respectful obeisances, te, unto you, jagat ishwaraya, unto the Lord of the universe, vai, indeed, Nārāyaṇaya, unto his lordship Narayan, akila lokashakṣine, who are the witness of all creation. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Material opulence is so bewildering that it makes even a learned, self-controlled man forget to search for the goal of self-realization. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Nārayaṇa, the Lord of the universe, can see everything by His will. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto Him. Please repeat. Material opulence is so bewildering that it makes even a learned, self-controlled man forget to search for the goal of self-realization. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Nārayaṇa, the Lord of the universe, can see everything by His will. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto Him. Purport. The words ko vicaṣṭe gatim ātmano yathā indicate that when one is puffed up by the false prestige of possessing material opulence, he certainly neglects the goal of self-realization. This is the position of the material world. This is the position of the modern world. Because of so-called scientific improvements in material opulence, people have entirely given up the path of self-realization. Practically no one is interested in God, one's relationship with God, or how one should act. Modern men have altogether forgotten such questions because they are mad for material possessions. If this kind of civilization continues, the time will soon come when the Supreme Personality of Godhead will take away all the material opulences. Then people will come to their senses. Hare Krishna. Material opulence is so bewildering that it makes even a learned, self-controlled man forget to search for the goal in life, for the goal of self-realization. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Nārāyaṇa, the Lord of the universe, can see everything by His will. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto Him. So the time will soon come when the Personality of Godhead will take away all material opulences. Then people will come to their senses. So how soon, we don't know. Time is a funny thing. Ultimately, time is the expression of the will of the Supreme Lord. So different people, different places in the universe experience time in different ways. This is, of course, Prabhupada saying the time will soon come. So if we look at our situation currently, then it's been 500 years since the advent of Lord Chaitanya, but only in the last 50 years has it actually started to fructify and blossom into a worldwide Krishna conscious movement, or a movement dedicated to self-realization. So that 500 years, from our point of view, of course, that's a long time. None of us probably are going to live for 500 years. But at the same time, from the viewpoint of the Supreme Lord, 500 years is a millisecond or something. Yeah, it's not very long at all. So exactly when this time will come that Prabhupada's saying here, when all the material opulences are taken away, that's a little hard to pinpoint. Yeah. Sometimes astrologers, they try to figure out when a certain event will happen, but exactly when is very difficult, because everything ultimately is being controlled and moved by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who exists within the heart of every living being, and by whose will everything becomes manifest or unmanifest. If we look at the length of time that Lord Brahma has to live, it's inconceivably long. There's that story about, what's that king's name? Revati's father. What was his name? Maharaj Kushmuda, something like that. Anyway, he had a beautiful daughter, Revati, that was very qualified, but he couldn't really decide who should be her husband. So after thinking for some time, he thought, let me go with this girl to see Lord Brahma, and then he can tell who will be the best husband for her. So he went. So obviously quite a powerful personality, yeah, that he can travel in the universe out of where he was situated into a realm, you know, which is practically inconceivably, you know, existing. The Satyaloka, the place of Lord Brahma, you know, we can read about the manifestation of that in the Bhagavatam, this gigantic lotus flower. So, you know, with our ordinary senses, how can we understand what that is? But this man was so powerful that he could go there and visit Lord Brahma. But when he got there, he was told, sorry, he's a little busy right now. The receptionist wouldn't let him in. So he had to wait. Lord, I think he was engaged in watching some dance recital or something. So by the time he got the message, yes, Lord Brahma will see you, some half hour or something like that had passed. So then they had a discussion. And then it turned out that because he was in Brahmaloka, then in the place where he'd come from, all the people, all the men that had been considered as worthy for his daughter to marry, they'd already died. And not just them, their, you know, descendants for many, many, many generations had also passed away due to the influence of time. So it was a very difficult situation that he was in. Everybody that he thought would be good, a good husband, had long since gone who knows where. So in that way, then ultimately he was advised, you marry this girl, Revati, to Balaram. Yeah, because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and he's unchanging. He doesn't die. So if she goes with him, that's the best situation. Because the story behind that, of course, there must be some other stories, you know, that link up Revati with Balaram. That's his eternal consort. But anyway, the point is that time is a very kind of nebulous influence. It's very difficult to describe what it is and what it does. Yeah, in this material world, just even, well, I remember I was with Prabhupada in Hyderabad, and he liked pomegranates. So one afternoon I gave him a pomegranate. Prabhupada had a schedule. So after lunch he would take rest for an hour, and then he would get up and we would immediately give him some fruit juice or even a piece of some cut fruit, or you know, just a snack. And so I'd given him this pomegranate. Later on I went back into his room and he had eaten about half of it, and then the rest was sitting on the desk, and still the seeds were inside, packed up. You've seen a pomegranate, all the seeds are very packed up together. So as I was cleaning up the desk and picking up the pomegranate, Prabhupada said that, just see, he said, and all the universes are just situated just like this. All packed. I said, packed up like that, Prabhupada? He said, yes. So these are many universes, yeah. And they're all emanating from the body of Lord Vishnu, who sometimes goes to sleep, and sometimes when he awakes, then all these universes come out, multitudes of universes. Yeah, so who can conceive of the power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and what time actually is? You could say that time is the expression of the will of the Lord. When he wills something, then it happens. Yeah, if he doesn't will it, then nothing happens. This is the situation. So in the spiritual world, there is no time. Yeah, specifically mentioned by Lord Brahma that time is noticeable by its absence. There is no time. There is simply Krishna, his personal presence, and all of his devotees. Not that because there's no flow of time, there's no past and there's no future, there's only the present. But when we say the present, it doesn't mean that things are fixed and can't move. Yeah, be in the, the moment, as they say. That moment, how much can you do in a moment? But in the spiritual world, one moment is the whole of eternity. Yeah, Krishna does his pastime activities, and those pastimes are going on in an ever-increasing, ever-expanding, ever-existing flow. Yeah, and the motivating factor, or the factor that's pushing and making everything move, is Krishna himself, the personality of Godhead. But in this material world, there is time, or what we call time. Yeah, because things have a beginning, they have a middle, and they have an end. And somehow or another, the living beings are being pushed along. Yeah, in the Brahma Samhita also it's mentioned about the movement of the sun, that every living entity in the universe is obedient to the movement of the sun. Yachakshurasya savita grahanam. Yeah, everything is measured by the movement of the sun. So that measurement, we like to measure things. We're obsessed with measurements. We have to have every second, accounted for, every minute, every hour, every day. We're trying to measure everything, but all it is just a flow of living beings moving from one place to another. That's all time is, nothing more. It's just an ever-existing flow. But in the material world, the living beings cannot retain the situation that they're in. It must end at some point or another. Yeah, just like on this planet, there are so many different living beings. We measure time according to how it affects our bodies and our minds. But other living beings, they're like ants. They're actually the most populous species on this planet. Somebody tried to calculate, I read an article about, they were trying to calculate how many ants there are on this planet. How can you do that? But it's like some trillions and billions of ants. Yeah, and I see just now when the rainy seasons come, so all the ants are moving indoors. Yeah, when the rain stops, they'll all move back out again. But anyway, to be an ant. But they have a life. They have a beginning, they have a middle, they mate. Yeah, they dwindle and grow old and die. So we could measure the lifetime of an ant. We can similarly measure our lifetimes as human beings. Yeah, we have a beginning and a middle and an end. There's those 6 transformations that take place: birth, growth, maintenance, reproduction, dwindling, and then vanishing. Yeah, because nothing really ever vanishes, because the bodies that we're in are part of the material makeup. Bhumira pavanalo vayu kamano buddhira vicha ahankara. So these bodies that we have are awarded to us, and in due course of time they're taken away. We are moved on. So that there's a force that's moving every living being, that's moving every atom, that makes up what we call matter, and it's moving also the apara prakriti, the other kind of energy or prakriti in this material world, which is the living beings. So all that is being moved by some influence or another. And the scientists are trying to discover how that is all going on. So because they have an ambition. They see that they're situated in this material conglomeration of matter. And they see that nothing lasts. Yeah, it somehow or another slips out of their fingers and away from them. They can't sustain the position that they're in. So that instability is a source of great anxiety. It's actually the source of all the fear in the universe, that we're in an unstable position and we don't want to be. How can you be happy? Yeah, if you know that everything's going to be taken away from you. So to try to overcome that instability, the scientists are looking into the makeup of material nature. They're trying to figure out, how does it work? What are the ingredients? Yeah, and they have a theory. There are 4 forces. Gravity, thank you. But now, and they've been looking at that and trying to see how these forces work. And ultimately their aim is that if they can figure out how these forces work, they can control them. A couple of years ago, I was mentioning this the other day, in Switzerland they've got that collider, Large Hadron Collider, and they're splitting the atoms, and they're trying to split the neutrons and the protons, and they're trying to figure out how matter is composed, what is making it work, yeah, what is its substance. And if we can find out how these forces work, then we can control it. Then we become the masters of the universe. Yeah, this is what they're after, this magic formula, mathematical formula, that if we can figure out how all these different forces work together, then we can actually bring the whole universe under our control, and we don't have to be subjected to it any further, anymore. So in this way, now, in the last couple of weeks, they've made another discovery, and they couldn't figure out what it is because it doesn't seem to fit with those 4 principles that they think they've already identified. So now some of them are saying that maybe there's a 5th kind of force. Yeah, and that 5th kind of force, if we can figure that one out, then we'll have control. Anyway, so it goes on and on. In the meantime, they're all dying. Whoever figured out, these so-called principles of physics and what have you, they're all long gone. Nobody knows where Einstein is. Yeah, didn't they keep Einstein's brain in a bottle? Is that right? After he died, they thought, this man has such an extraordinary brain, we'll pickle it. They put his brain in a bottle with the hope that later on they might be able to discover how it was working and what it was that made him so intelligent. So anyway, people are living like this, in this phantasmagoria, this forlorn hope that at some point or another we will control everything and then we'll live forever. Yeah, that botheration of moving, being forced to move from one body to another, from one situation to another, we'll dispense with that, the fear factor, by becoming the controller of everything. Yeah, so they're making all their experiments, they're trying to control, and the end result is 0. That's all. No progress. Because if they went to visit some of the yogis that live up in the Himalayas, they could actually figure out, they could be trained, well, I don't know whether they could be trained, but they would find there, personalities on this planet, human beings, apparently human beings like us, but they're 400 or 500 years old. When Prabhupada went to the Kumbh Mela in 1971, you see they're 300, 400, 500 years old. Yeah, so so it can be done. You can kind of stretch time, if you like, to some degree or another. That's a little extraordinary to live so long on this platform, on this Bhumandala. But in other places, 400 or 500 years, you're just a baby. Yeah, on the planets of the demigods, they live for tens of thousands of years. Yeah, and on Lord Brahma's planet, you live the entire length of the universe from the beginning to the end. And if you're outside of that, if you're in the causal ocean, and Lord Vishnu's breathing out, and so many universes are becoming manifest, and then he's breathing in, and they're coming retracted back into his body. It's inconceivable. But something is moving everything. That's the point. Yeah. Time is not blind. It's not impersonal. Or sometimes Prabhupada refers to time as being the impersonal feature of the Supreme Absolute. But ultimately we know that time, we could say, indicates existence. Yeah, what your time is according to the body that you've got, that's your existence. So by the force of time you move from one body to another. That may mean that that one body, apparently by our measurement, lives for hundreds of thousands or billions of years, whereas another one, the insects, like the ant, their 100 years is just a little speck. They live for a couple of days only. So that force that moves everything is identified here. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Nārāyaṇa. Yeah. The Lord of the universe can see everything by his will. There's nothing that is beyond him. Yeah. He is the primary factor, either in the material or the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, he's engaged in Leela pastimes, he's enjoying himself with his devotees. There's no influence of time. Yeah, there's simply the presence of Krishna and the interactions that go on with him. Yeah. And what's going on in this material world is an imitation of that. Because it's an imitation, it doesn't last very long. It's just there to give us a glimpse of what life is actually meant to be all about. So, Prabhupada mentions here that in the present civilization, because they're lost in this phantasmagoria of trying to find out how to control everything and ignoring the actual controller. They're right about one thing: there is control. Things are not happening willy-nilly, just accidentally. There's no such thing as accident. Everything is working according to a set plan or a set way of action. So they are, the scientists, correct in saying that there's some kind of supreme influence under which everything is working. But what that influence is, they have no idea, nor will they ever know. I read part of a book called A Brief History of Time. Some of you may have read that, by Stephen Hawking. Hawking is one of the biggest demons of the modern day, because he just died a year or two ago. But he was the so-called inventor of the Big Bang Theory. So Hawking was saying, he was commenting on matter, on the substance stuff of the universe, and he was saying that there are laws. Things work according to very precise laws. So he said it's always possible that there could be some higher influence, which is preventing us from seeing, what the universe is actually all about. He actually admitted that. But then he brushes that aside very quickly. And then he goes on, his whole book is about, how the universe works and all the different laws of the universe, physics, chemistry, biology, whatever. And it's all speculation about how things are actually working. But he was pretty close to it at the beginning. If he'd have just stopped on that one point, he would have been okay. That There is something which is acting upon us and preventing us from seeing what that something is. That's Krishna. Yeah, and we are, in essence, we are conscious living beings. So something which has no consciousness cannot act upon something which has consciousness. Something which is inferior cannot act on something which is superior. So Krishna is that superior force. That 4 fields or 5 fields, even if they figure out the 5th field, of energy, they say dark matter or dark energy, maybe it's like this, they're speculating. Even if they find those things out, no matter how closely, how deeply they study the workings of the universe, they'll never actually find out how it works. There'll always be something more. Magnetism, electralism, whatever it is. There'll always be another force. This is the material world. It works in a very, very specific way, and it's inconceivable. To ordinary living beings, it's completely inconceivable. It's eternal. Yeah, it has no limit. So how to understand that? They'll never figure it out using their tiny brains. And if they study the Bhagavatam, the answer is given here. There is a superior consciousness which is working above all other conscious living beings, and which is obliging those living beings to move from one situation to another continually. That supreme force that they're looking for is identified in the Bhagavatam as Nārāyaṇa, Krishna, Vishnu. Conscious, supremely conscious, unconquerable, Ajit, that is another name for Lord Nārāyaṇa, that he cannot be conquered, he cannot be understood. Yeah, at least not by our attempts, not by our own effort. Yeah, so we're wasting our time, these so-called scientific improvements, in the course of trying to find out how the material universe works. All they've ended up doing, the modern day scientists, is making a mess of everything. Yeah, just like they invented, I think the real problem started when they invented or discovered electricity, because there was a build-up to that. About the early 1700s, they discovered mechanisms, how to build mechanisms to make life easier. And in this way, then gradually they developed the whole mechanistic, world that we live in. It's ruled by mechanisms, and their attempts to manipulate matter more and more and more and more, but without understanding the consequences, have left us in a huge mess. Yeah, it's just completely wiping out the whole planet. This amazing, what to say? It's not the material world is an amazing construct. Yeah, so they're trying to play around with that, but they don't realize what the consequences are. Yeah, it's so complex, it's so complicated, but it works so precisely and so wonderfully. Yeah, they're thinking now, if we can control this, we can do anything. Yeah, but all they're doing is getting more and more, as Prabhupada said on his original Hare Krishna album, that they're getting more and more entangled in the complexity of material nature. And the end result is disaster, because everything's been designed to work in, a harmonic kind of way, to supply to us the needs that we have for keeping body and soul together, but for the purpose of, coming to an understanding of who we really are. And who we really are is that we are servants of that supreme conscious force, that supremely conscious living being, Nārāyaṇa. That's our real position. So, in trying to manipulate material nature, they're forgetting who's actually in control. We're living in a state now of deep ignorance. They advertise that we've never been more advanced in knowledge than we are now. It's all a lie. We've never been in more ignorance than we are now. Yeah. The more we try to understand things, the more we get wrapped up in the complexity of it, and the ramifications, the end result of our playing around with material nature is, what we're getting now: pollution everywhere. Just like recently, they discovered that there's a patch of garbage. Plastic, all these plastic bottles. That what's happening to all that plastic, the plastic bags that they have, it's all been flushed into the sea. So a few years ago, people were thinking the oceans are so vast that there's no way you could pollute the entire ocean. Now they've suddenly realized that that's exactly what's happening. There are boats that have gone out beyond the Caribbean islands, and they've discovered a patch of garbage which is many, many miles, across. It's all just plastic floating in the ocean. And if they keep on going at the rate that they're doing now, the entire ocean at some point is going to become completely blocked up with all this, discarded plastic. As one of the worst inventions ever, plastic. Yeah, it just pollutes everything, and all the fish are dying. It's a mess. And similarly also, I saw a film about how they make these smartphones, the telephones that we think are so useful. But to get the elements to flush out, there's bits of gold and silver and some other elements which are very rare, they're very difficult to find. They're destroying large tracts of land, trying to break down the earth and find these elements which they make into the phones. And the end result is that all the rivers, all the large bodies of water have become polluted and unusable for human sustainability. We could go on a long time. That's just a couple of examples. So this is material modern life, that the scientists neglecting real self-realization because they don't know what the real self actually is. A tiny, eternal servant of the Supreme Consciousness, Krishna or Lord Vishnu, because they don't know anything about that. Then their intelligence is being misused, and it's causing so many big problems. So, as Prabhupada says here, time will soon come. So what soon actually means, we'll see. Lord Chaitanya came 500 years ago. Just now his movement is manifesting in the last 50 years. So this soon that Prabhupada's talking about, when the personality of Godhead will take away all the material opulences, and then people will come to their senses, something big is going to happen. Yeah, Prabhupada was a transcendental soul, so he has that vision of time. He knows what time is. He knows that's this exertion of the will of the Supreme Lord. So it's going to happen. Whether that's in our lifetime or in our next lifetimes, let's hope we don't have to take another lifetime if the world is in the mess that it's getting into now. But it's going to happen. Something big is going to change. Yeah. So we should take this very seriously. And anyway, our concern ultimately is not to do with material opulences, material, living. What we want to do is to get clear of all of that, get clear of everything in the material world, and come to that place where there is no birth, death, old age and disease, where there is no fear. That is Goloka Vrindavan. So we can do that. It's possible. But only if one is very serious and studies very carefully and gets the right association. Bali Maharaj, he was getting control of larger tracts of the universe, but all under bad influence. So in order to correct him, then the Lord appeared, and then everything was finished. So in a similar way, this planet, maybe on other planets also, but that's going to happen. The Lord will ultimately take some action to correct things. Yada yada hi dharmasya glani bhavati bharata. Yeah, Krishna comes just whenever there's a rise in irreligiosity. At that point, Krishna says, all right, now help you out. I'll come and correct you. Kill all the demons. Yeah, set everything back into its natural function. And live nicely by means of the vow, bringing people back to their senses. Because the Varnashram system is based upon one ideal. The living beings are the eternal servants of the Supreme Living Being. That's Varnashram. How all the Varnashram systems, how they integrate the different aspects of Varnashram. All of them depend upon every member of the society, Varnashram society, understanding very clearly that they are servants and not masters. We are servants of material, the material world. We are servants of the Supreme, who supplies all the material elements to us. Yeah, if we live naturally, what does that mean? It means that we live within the established cycle, just like you have the different seasons of the year. So in each season of the year, there's some transformation of nature. Then we get our food to eat, we get sunshine, we get good water, we get the materials that we need to live nicely. That's Varnashram. Under the care of nature. And if we think that we can control nature, then everything becomes messed up. There is control. There's this wonderful material nature that we're living within, which supplies all of our needs. But what we really are, and where are we going to go after we leave this body? So in that way then, this material nature that we're living within, which supplies us our food, our clothing, our housing, and whatever, it's a delicate balance. And Varnashram is meant to enable us so-called superior human beings. It's meant to help us balance our lives out in interaction with material nature. That's Varnashram. But when you ignore the Varnashram system, you try to take control of everything yourself. And then that's where all the problems come in. So we're not controllers. We're tiny little individual particles that are being controlled at every moment. When we realize that, then everything will be transformed. But if we stubbornly keep up this idea that we're making progress by scientific so-called improvements, we're just going to land ourselves in a, very, very difficult situation, increasingly more so. Okay, so it's 8:55. We should finish. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Yes, Mataji. We got a microphone.
Thank you so much for this inspiring class. I just wanted to ask, because you said that in one lifetime it is possible to go back to Godhead. So I would like to ask you, based on your personal experience, what advice would you give to my generation, our generation? And what kind of a right association are you talking about when you say?
What advice do I have for your generation?
Yeah.
The same advice that we got from our previous generation, Srila Prabhupada, and the generation before him, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, etc. This is a window of opportunity, I think they call it. Yeah, we get a little, in Kali Yuga, it's very overwhelming. Pollution is everywhere, of every kind of imaginable pollution is going on. So it's not just the water, the earth, the airwaves, the radio, the transmission of garbage, invisible garbage. That's what it is. As much as there's pollution on the land and in the water, there's pollution in the air also. So we've got a window of opportunity in Kali Yuga to take up this process of Krishna consciousness very seriously, not for very long. We only live for 70, 80 years, or even less than that. So it's not a long time. But the process is so powerful that you can actually solve all your problems within that, span of life that we've got given with this body. So all we have to do is to be a little serious, sober. Prabhupada said you have to be very sober-minded. And if we remain sober, not intoxicated with power, and all these so-called scientific manipulations and improvements, it's making people drunk with power, that's all. So we have to be, sensible, we have to be sober, listen very carefully, and immediately it will become apparent from the Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, from the association of advanced devotees. Then it becomes apparent what the proper purpose of life actually is, how we can best serve ourselves and others. And that's by chanting. It's by taking up the yajna for this age. Everybody has to sacrifice. Yeah, so it's better that you voluntarily do it rather than be forced to. Yeah, these demons that are causing all these problems nowadays, science, yeah, they're going to have to perform their yajna. But performing their yajna is going to be very difficult for them because they're so attached. Bali Maharaj, yeah, he was also forced. Of course, it's a little different from what our situation is, but we're here by the grace of God. Yeah, we've somehow or another ended up in the right place at the right time, where we can get the fullest benefit from these human forms that we've been given. Not very long, but it doesn't have to be very long. You can become Krishna conscious in a second. There's one short film clip from when Prabhupada was in Melbourne in 1975. He opened the temple there, and one of the devotees asked this question, that how long, we've been sinful for so many lifetimes. So how long will it take? Yeah, is it possible in one lifetime to account for all of those sinful reactions that we've got coming from our previous activities? Prabhupada looked at him very sternly. He said, one lifetime. He said, 1 minute. He said, all your sinful effects will be gone in 1 minute. That is the Krishna consciousness movement. So we have to learn how to live in the present. That means that right now I have to see, what am I doing, what am I thinking, what should I be doing next. We should be constantly examining, am I doing this for Krishna, or am I doing this for myself? That's living in the moment. Yeah, they used to have a saying, just live for today. John Lennon, he was keen on promoting that, just live for the day. Well, okay, his day came. Where he's gone now, nobody knows. But for us, live or not live, it doesn't matter in the sense of this material body, because the devotee serves Krishna whilst he's in this body, and when he leaves this body, he continues serving Krishna. That's our advantage. It's eternal process. So we can get the maximum benefit by just making that choice as it comes at every second to serve Krishna and not to serve our own foolish illusions. Is that all right? All right. Any other question? All right, we'll finish. Oh, Radhakund Mataji. Give her the...
You were mentioning about Prabhupada's schedule. Could you just explain a bit more to us?
Prabhupada's schedule.
You're an ocean of Prabhupada's nectar.
Well, I did... one thing that I noticed with Srila Prabhupada was that he was in a different time frame, if you like. You know, we get up in the morning, we have our set routine, you know, we bathe, we dress, we chant, we have breakfast, we do some service, we come back, you know, there's like actions that we perform day in and day out. We get to evening time, we have to take rest, we're out of it for 6 hours or whatever it is, gone somewhere, whoever knows where. So we can, you know, we can mark our time, if you like, from one day to the next. There's a distinction, at least to us, it appears to be a distinction between yesterday, today and tomorrow. But with Srila Prabhupada, it was like living on the eternal platform. His only activity, day, so-called day or night, was the same thing. You know, worshipping Krishna in various ways. And he didn't really seem to have like the beginning or the end of a day. You know, when we went to bed at night time, so say 10 o'clock, or when everybody took rest, Prabhupada would lie down for about an hour, or maximum 2 hours, and he would have a massage on his legs. And then very often I saw that when he told me to stop massaging, you know, it might be 11 o'clock, 11:30, that was then when we took rest, we servants. But Prabhupada very often, immediately you stopped massaging him and went to take rest, he got up. And then he worked through the entire night. And then you'd come in the morning, say about, you know, 4:30 or 5 o'clock when Mangalati was starting. And sometimes I'd come into Prabhupada's room and he was just finishing up, and then he'd lay back for a few minutes. And then he would go and brush his teeth, you know, and get ready for his morning walk. So with Prabhupada, it was just one continuous, you know, stream of action. He didn't have like a day and a night, so to speak, a beginning of one day and the end of a day. It was just all going on, flowing to Krishna's lotus feet. And that was, I don't know whether we could ever get to that point. It's pretty difficult. Yeah. All right. Okay, thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Bhava Mahadabhav Nipāpanam